Evening all. Here now as the Scrutineer here, but we're on the aftermath. If you've come to the right place, we want to talk everything GPVWC about the Hungarian Grand Prix that came back after our summer break, and we've started the second half of the season. Here we're going to review everything that went on Thursday night. If you haven't watched the show before, we go through all the teams. I'm normally joined by a guest. This time was going to be the Madcape manager, Xavier, but unfortunately is a no-show. Our thanks to Ben Hall and Andreas Walters for doing the last two episodes. If you want to be on the next one, somebody else can come in. It's nice to have managers on who sort of know their side of the story of what's going on in the season so far, but drivers are also welcome, maybe even just fans. It's great to have you guys aboard anyway. Thank you to the guys watching live. You can get involved, particularly now there's only me here. I will be watching your comments on the YouTube stream to get a bit of banter maybe as we go through the teams and exactly what happened. Does mean it's going to be a slightly shorter episode because I haven't got the interview at the start, which is a bit of a shame. If you haven't watched back the race, it is all available. We're here on GPVWC's Simracing YouTube channel, so if you look down below you can find all the previous episodes of this show. You can also find the race from last time out and all the previous ones from last time, all brought to you by simnews.tv, as this is. If you haven't watched the series before, if you haven't come across it, it's all run on Rfactor 2. It's with a custom mod. It's as close to Formula 1 as you can get as a team event, particularly as all the cars are not equal. So that all does play in a factor. That's what we do on the original Scrutineer show. So we do that every Monday alternately to this one, where we discuss everything that has been upgraded on the cars and everything else going on there. It's very nice to have, yes, very nice to have you in there as well, being our test driver for Madcape. At least somebody from Madcape is alive. That's good to know. So that's quite nice to have somebody in the chat. Hello there. On the other hand, there's so much going on with GPVWC's sim racing at the moment, but particularly in the WTF1 Superleague. We shall go through Hungary. We had a quite incredible race, really. Looked over, kind of started off just madly the moment it rained in qualifying. Some people were expecting it, some people weren't, and that really gave us quite a topsy-turvy grid in the main. Throw a few back of the grids in from the last event as well, and everybody was sort of starting off on a slightly strange foot. Everyone started off on the wet tyres because it was heavily wet. So it did play a huge factor into everyone's a little bit of mind games, and there's some people that were quite fresh and new in the cars, and throwing into a mixed conditioned wet race probably isn't ideal. But there's some experienced people are out as well that also failed. It was kind of who made the least mistakes all in. If that was from qualifying, if you didn't go out straight away in qualifying, then you struggled because it rained straight away, so it got wetter and wetter and wetter. As the race went on, it did eventually dry up, and so we did see, we saw the wet weather tyres, we saw the inter tyres, and then we saw dry weather tyres at the end. So it was quite an incredible race. If you haven't watched the Super League, this would be one I would recommend you watching to find out what it's really all about, why people watch this series, why over 250,000 people now have viewed this series already this year alone. Incredible stat that. I absolutely love it that people are now suddenly watching our little league and everything that goes on at GPVWC. So as I haven't got the interview, which is a shame really, because actually it was a very timely interview to have with, as we'll come on to, with Xavier. If he does rock up, we'll throw him in, of course, but in the meantime I suppose we better keep going through things. Did you all enjoy the race first? Everyone who's watching here in the chat, give us a bit of a hello, and yeah, did you enjoy the changeable conditions? Something that Rfactor 2 does very well is the wet weather, really. The changeable conditions, the drying lines, what it actually means to your tyres, and it's very much driver feel and what you can do in the times as well, rather than having, particularly now on DX11, rather than having all your little gadgets that tells you, used to be able to tell you what wetness it is here, there and everywhere. It's not quite the case here. You can know the total wetness, but it's not necessarily on the right part of the track. That might be under a bridge, that could be the wettest puddle, that could be... So it doesn't quite give you a full sense of actually how you can drive around that track. Of course you want to drive on the drier line, but even if you are fast on the drier line, can you overtake? Because you have to go onto the wet stuff. Well, we found a lot of people struggle doing that element of it. A lot of people struggle coming out the pits as well on the wet tyre, on the drier tyres in the on the wet track, because that's just equally another problem, because that's a part of the track that doesn't get driven on anywhere near as much as the main straight does. So yeah, it was very eventful to watch. I would recommend you watching that back. Pretty incredible. Hello, Bruno Ferreira. Hello, nice to see you there. Hey, FIDOCK as well. We've got a double world champion in the chat. Everyone say hello to him as well. Somebody actually raced in the race. So yes, was edge of the seat stuff was incredible. I completely agree, everybody. So let's carry on. Let's get into the nitty gritty of it all, really. So we had we'll go through the championship standings that way. So at the moment, ACR leading the way. So they've got a championship ranking of first. They had RISTO, KAPPET and Alex Siebel racing once again. Alex Siebel, some will argue, got lucky with the track conditions in qualifying, so managed to get pole position, quite comfortably pole position, but he probably had, other than RISTO, he probably had the driest track of anybody. RISTO KAPPET did qualify second but had his penalty, so ended up at the back of the grid in 22nd. Race-wise, couldn't really have gone much better for Alex, really. I suppose he kind of went away at the start, although even the mighty Alex Siebel did have a spin as well, trying to make a pit stop towards the end. Did have a spin on the final corner, which didn't let necessarily, but made it much easier for JARL to have jumped him in the pit stops, and it only because JARL ended up having to take an extra pit stop at the end did Alex get the win effectively in that way. JARL did make errors as well on trying to catch Alex at the end, which we'll come on to, but yeah, even the invincible Alex, who looks like on stats on paper there that a win from first is easy, was by no means easy. People were definitely racing him all the way. Simracing Rick, apologies, not quite sure who you actually are that raced, but you said not saying that you didn't like it because it first time you'd properly driven in the wet. First quality lap was a mess. Yeah, if you're not expecting it, that would be pretty horrendous. Yeah, I mean, I've seen drivers thrown in at like Monaco and things like that, and it's kind of like it's just, you know, sink or swim kind of thing, really. But nevertheless, but there was errors up and down the field, as we'll get to. I'm not going to point out everyone's errors, but you know, these two particularly, everyone at this sort of end of the grid is very high profile when they do make an error. So, yeah, having one stop less for Alex very much helped, but actually getting the win was the main thing for him, I suppose, and it is who makes the least mistakes. RISTO KAPPET come from the back, did very well to get to 6th, arguably, probably could have actually got higher than that, did make some errors himself, but did make some very good strategy calls as well, so went onto the inters very early, and that jumped him up an awful lot of positions, went onto the dries earlier than nearly everybody, I think, apart from Yuri Kasdorp, so like doing that, apart from people like FRAN LOPEZ and people that just tried it out of the back, but of the main competitors, was sort of right up there taking the gamble with it. So it did kind of pay off for him, but arguably yes, being overtaken by the car at the back of the field normally probably wasn't a highlight for him, and you know, going off track a few times here, there and everywhere probably wasn't ideal, but overall everyone made mistakes. So getting the car home, number one, is a great thing. Getting the car home from 22nd to 6th still has to be praised as a pretty good drive all in. It's only because we know how good RISTO can be that we all expected him to get like 3rd. But 6th is still a very good result for him and the team as well. Oh, who have we got on here? We've got Michael Ayres, hello. Roger Cameron, nice to see you. Dennis Jordan joining us, that's nice. Ricardo COSTA is Simracing Rick, thank you. Sorry there. First ever, hello, Slicks, yes. There's always somebody that gambles. We've seen it in the previous races as well where it has rained, and so there's always somebody that has to be the guinea pig that gambles it. It's normally somebody further down the grid because obviously they got the most to gain from it. If they're out the points anyway, you take the gamble and go for it, I suppose. Or if you really don't like the wet tyres, you go, I want to get on the dries maybe. But there is a definite time when it is too early, and we saw an awful lot of people who went too early spinning off at different points. Was a lot quicker. They might be very quick for a lap and gain 3 or 4 seconds, but they needed to because they were losing out 4 or 5 seconds when they spun the next lap. So if not a load of damage and a pit stop later, in which case ruined the races, as yeah, Ricardo, you'll know yourself. Overall though, got to be for ACR, got to be returned to reasonable form after the losing out to the Edge guys in a 1-2 last time out. Edge managed to pull off before the summer break, so coming back with a win and a 6th is still pretty reasonable considering what was a back of grid. So the wet weather probably did help them in that respect. But yeah, arguably, still could have been even better. So there is still a bit of a question mark there, but I think overall a pretty good result for the team. Edge came into this after their 1-2, and because they started quite high in the pit lane as well, they had quite drying tracks as well, so they actually qualified third third and sixth respectively to JARL and Petter, which is pretty good in the conditions. It's these sort of conditions where the top teams can really lose out. You can't really gain massively because you're arguably going to be up there anyway. So you're only going to lose out by other people being able to have set their lap time at the right time, that sort of thing, or having got out onto the track quicker than you. And they did very well as equally. I mean, JARL, arguably, people will argue, had the pace difference over Alex as well. But then he did do one more stop, so he should have more pace because he had fresher tyres for a lot longer and things like that. But coming home second, only actually under 10 seconds off the lead, when they were a reasonable margin off a third. So again, a bit like Monaco, it was a good battle between the two of them, and it won't be the last we see this year, no doubt, between those two. So pretty incredible one there. They have got an actual R&D ranking of 9th, but do sit second in the championship, so the drivers are very much outperforming the car. There is an engine element and strategy and tyre choices and all that sort of element in that we haven't factored into that ranking, but nonetheless still very much overly performing that car. Petter as well, very competitive element from sort of third all the way down to arguably down to about 10th. Was very close for most of the race, so actually to come out reasonably high up on that in fourth was a great result as well for the team. They did very well there. Thank you, David, for bringing that up. Of course, ACR making it 4 in a row at Hungarian. 4 years on the bounce for the team to actually win there now, with Pushka, Rudy Van Buren before that, and now Alex Siebel to that list. Thank you very much for bringing that up. I wasn't even going to, but as you have, of course I will. Listening to viewers' comments. Overall, though, for Edge, I think that they're still very much in touch, still very much on the same ball game as ACR, and it is now looking like very much a two-horse race between the two teams for the title. Not to say at this stage it couldn't be somebody else, but at this point both the teams are looking very strong. They're both looking like they can score high double points finishes each time. Hello David Carter as well, our commentary extraordinaire from the race. If you haven't seen him do it, making his Super League debut for simnews.tv, make sure you catch that, as I said before, for the race. But very much nice to have you on board. Our normal ICMRS ACR Academy commentator as well, so if you haven't caught those, you can catch all the rookies doing their stuff over on the ACR Facebook. Epic third in the standings, and still are third in the standings, even though by their means this is probably their worst race of the season. They have an R&D ranking of second, so they've got a very good car. The championship is third, so they're not far off. Boyer, MILLAN and Jeffrey Fournier. Now, they didn't, well, Boyer had a poor qualifying. He got caught out by the rain, didn't manage to, well, I think he did set a first lap, but I'm sure he had a spin or something on it, so it wasn't a normal pace lap anyway. And once you've messed up that first lap, basically there wasn't really much coming back from that. He did gain a couple of positions after that in following laps, I believe, but still nowhere near where you'd expect him to be, so qualifying 21st. Fournier did have the back of the grid, well, in fact a double back of the grid penalty. He had one from the previous round and did take his fresh engine as well this time out, which we'll come on to. So that started him 28th. For various reasons, both drivers DNF'd, which is the bottom line, I suppose. And that's kind of what they're going to come away from this with, I think. They weren't really ever in the mix, although they both had pace, particularly when they had clear air. They showed pace. Fournier was battling away in that sort of pack. He ended up in that pack between sort of 4th and 10th and lower end of the points. But there's, ultimately it was sort of due to strategy, which he had to do because he had that back of the grid. And when you're down that back of the grid area as well, there's always the worry of damage. There's a lot more guys around, and in that spray, we haven't even talked about that. The spray at the start for the first couple of laps was crazy because obviously it was about 90% wetness or something like that. You remember this first lap before everyone's sort of driven on it properly. They had the formation lap, but other than that, and in such close proximity, no massive collisions, no massive crashes, nothing like that. They put Formula 1 to shame at times. Absolutely incredible throughout the whole field, to make it round. Not to say some people didn't DNF, obviously, throughout the race, but no big, huge pile-ups, no stupid dive bombs, nobody ramming into the back of each other on the first lap, which I was mightily impressed with. And I imagine that some of these guys that were out of position would have been very, very wary. But it shows the quality that we have up and down the field now, which I was very impressed with. So well done to everybody. But Epic, yeah, I'd say probably that DNF. Is it too harsh to say at this stage? That's probably they're in the title challenge. but still you think this is a brand new team in the Super League this year. This is a team that is still third, and they were kind of cemented there. Well, come on, they've got probably a little bit of a battle with Evolution for third place, and probably the best new team as well. It's probably what we're battling away for in these two teams. Jeffrey did blow an engine, which amazes me. Brand new engine, so it wasn't to do with wear, but it did seem to be to do with something jumping into neutral. We've seen that before in the past, either selected the wrong gear or something has horrendously gone wrong. Normally it's something to do with your wheel, some issue there that you've selected the wrong thing potentially. Hello to Philip Parkers as well, nice to see you on board. Yeah, so I don't know, I need to check whether or not it does go down as a full-on engine blow, in which case they may lose the use of that engine completely. Because that was the 7th one he bought, Unit 7 as well, so that would be that unit gone. More than likely though, if anything in the past is likely to go by, I don't think there's a way for them to monitor that necessarily, so I think it will just work on the kilometres covered, which won't be as much damage, although it did get to lap 50, so quite a way during the race. So it won't be a brand new fresh engine anymore, but still pretty good. But could impact them further down the line. Yeah, one good thing though, if you don't qualify, I suppose you're not going to have had back of the grid for next time. But yeah, one to forget for Edge, that one. Epic even, Epic Edge. Edge did very well, Epic very, very poor, to be honest. That's kind of how that worked this time out. Evolution, 4th up. Yeah, starting to catch up now for 3rd, potentially. They've got an RD ranking of 3rd, but the championship in 4th, so actually slightly underperforming the car, if anything. David FIDOCK saying he was guessing some turns and just followed the white lines to the side of the car. Wow. Okay. Yeah, we might as well just made it in the dark as well, then mightn't we just had gone the whole hell. Anyway, Evolution. Dennis Jordan and the new driver in as Janis Bock. So he got, well, kind of again baptism of fire, thrown in the wet. Dennis Jordan starting 8th. He did have a 5-place grid penalty. And then Bock started 17th. It's not the best qualifying they've ever done. Bock jumping in the shoes of Tom Parker, who's still with the team, doing 3rd driver duties, doing free practice, that sort of thing. Right, okay. Being confirmed for me that it is only on kilometres for Jeffrey Fournier's engine, so very lucky there, Fournier, I suppose. One thing that we don't do very well compared to Formula 1, I guess, there in that case, but still very lucky. Still on his 7th engine. We've still got quite a few engines to use, but they're all slightly worn. Be interesting to see if you use, nice of you to join us by the way, Jeffrey, in the chat. Be interesting to see if you use that fresh engine at Spa or Monza, because you can't have a fresh one at either, at both. You can have one at, or at USA maybe hold it for that, I don't know. But yeah, Evolution doing do what we've sort of got used to them doing now. Dennis being right up there. Some good strategy calls that got him out, managed to get him out in clear air quite often. He was on that battle to start with an awful lot of guys, like we were saying, but managing to come out 3rd. At one point it was arguable that he was a pit out basically. It was one pit stop out, because whenever the guys in front pitted, he was right there a couple of seconds behind them, but he was once to pit stop back. Did very good out of it. They came 3rd again, another podium for Dennis. Fantastic work from him. Really, to be honest, pulling the team forwards at the moment. Bock though did a very solid. He'll rue a couple of mistakes that he made, but still a very, very solid drive for the team as well. To come home in 8th, when you think out of that you've still got 2 ACRs and 2 Edge guys finishing, so that's 4 places of your top 8 already taken up. So to come 8th in, I believe, your debut race in Super League in such conditions is incredible work. You know, arguably though, it's been slightly overshadowed by a few other new faces as well, but arguably that was a very good drive by him. Very good team points. He almost actually had 7th right on the last lap. I think it was last corner he ended up going off in an attempt to overtake, but still incredible driving. And I'd love to see actually what happens in a dry race with him, if he really has got the pace to match Dennis. Now he might have a bit more time in the car. Hawkeye still managing to hold on to 5th place in the championship, not necessarily because of great results from themselves, but more because the guys behind are doing rather poor results as well now. But arguably Costa was in the car again, and Chris Butcher was called upon relatively last minute, as far as I'm aware, to stand in once more for Hawkeye. He's their normal reserve third driver, also leading the Formula Challenge standings at the moment. So if you want to see more of him, you can watch that as well. It's all on this channel on the Tuesday, and Super Cup on the Wednesday before the Super Leagues on the Thursday. Yeah, Costa and Butcher though, sort of standard sort of qualifying, I suppose. Again, further down the garages, so you end up further down sort of the line coming out the pits at the start of qualifying. So you end up further down in the timings, because it was wet. It was the wetness was much higher by the time you got onto the track, or partway around the track anyway. So yeah, that didn't go so well. Costa did try. Well, in fact, Costa and Butcher both tried. Whether or not it must have been a team call, because they did it at very much similar times. Bold tyre choices, shall we say, and it looked like it was going to pay off. I remember sitting on the pit wall watching Costa set a blistering lap, one or so laps after he came out of the pits, and then promptly spun it. In fact, I think he spun it on his out lap first off, coming out of the pits, if I remember rightly. It may do you a disservice there, I'm sorry, but I know you did definitely spin afterwards, and then in fact promptly spun again. Wings fell off, nightmares happened. Costa's one of these guys that can be absolutely fantastic, or one. I mean, in this sort of track though, it is just one error can throw you into a wall. When you lose a wing, you having to pit again. You're then miles behind again. If you then got that decision of, do I, particularly if you pit early for, this is something that we've seen in the past as well. If you pit early for, say, dry tyres, and you're going, right, I'm going to be the first one to do this, you set a blisteringly hot lap, but then spin the next lap and have to pit. What choice do you make there? Do you go back onto the dries again, knowing you're going to have to go onto the dries anyway in a couple of laps, because it's blatantly faster on a one lap pace, so it's nearly that time for dries, so you have to put dries on, right? But the track isn't ready for it. You know it's not ready for it because you've just gone off into the barrier. That's a horrible decision to make. If you put the inters back on, you're only going to have to pit again in 3 or 4 laps time. Your race is done. You're having to pit two times more than anyone else just to do the same strategy calls. It's a hard time to be in. Don't know, what would you guys have done? If you've done that, you've gone in the pits, you've gone onto the dry tyres or the inter tyres, and in this case, and it's not worked for you. Do you go back on it? Do you go, oh, I made the mistake? Or do you stick with it and go, I'm going to keep going with this, if they are definitely faster? It'd be interesting to hear your comments actually in that, particularly as we've got some of the other drivers in here who didn't make that call early enough, but you could easily have made that mistake. You know, we always spoke about RISTO making a call quite early on. You know, that could have been a very poor call. It could have worked out as if it's 2 or 3 laps early, that can look a horrendous call, but you can be very much on the cusp. But anyway, both drivers unfortunately DNFing. Not a good day at the office for Hawkeye, and it's looking like 5th is probably the highest they're going to get in the standings at this stage. With Revelation scoring, you'd expect Epic to get back double scoring next time out as well. I think Hawkeye, to be honest, Hawkeye is a resurgence for them after last year. 5th is a reasonable point for them at this stage, I think, to keep building on, particularly as they need to get that second seat filled consistently with somebody all the time. We did hear about Martini doing it beforehand. Don't know if he's going to stay in the car. It was only meant to be to the summer break as far as we were told originally. We've not heard anything since. Yeah, so Butcher can only do 4 races because he's not going to give up his Formula Challenge title, title option I suppose, at this stage. So yeah, go to the pits and drink coffee. It would be a safer option, a nice warmer option probably, but not really the best necessarily to get some points for your team. Sitting in 6th place is Norton still. RMD ranking of 8th now, so the car is getting much better. Now sitting in 6th, the experienced hands of FIDOCK and Cooper sitting in those 2 seats. Unfortunately, when you're talking qualifying, again being further down the field, well, not further down the field of the grid, there shouldn't have been. For example, there was a smaller error which probably wasn't even noticed other than by David and Alex themselves. Before qualifying had even started, when they all sort of go up and form a train to go out of the pit lane before the green light starts, they were all in the rush to get out so quickly that actually FIDOCK and Siebel had a small coming together, which I believe left them both with a slight bit of damage. Siebel decided to stay out on and go with it anyway. FIDOCK, as in the pit lane, escaped back to the pits, not a problem, you haven't left the pits, and went out again with a fully fixed car. The downside to that was he was right down the train of cars at that stage, which shouldn't have been an issue any other qualifying, but this particular qualifying meant it had rained heavily by the time he got around to the same position of the track he would have been on if he was with Alex Siebel on track. So probably ruining that ever so slightly, or blaming Alex, whichever. But yeah, it did mean though that, well, he started 14th because he had the 5-place penalty, but yes, still qualified quite far down, very similar to his teammate realistically. They were on very similar conditions is the word I was looking for there. Which we're looking for. David Carter says that race 2 in Austria was the same issue with dry or wet tyre choice. It's a difficult choice, and it happens up and down the ladder, and you do need to learn this. You needed to test wet conditions even at tracks that you may not think of, particularly around Europe. It rains in Europe, it does, it happens all the bloody time. We have horrendous heat waves, and then we have horrendous thunderstorms, and we have, at the moment, goodness knows what. You might as well pray to the gods as to what the weather's going to be like at the moment. Nobody really knows. You could be having forest fires, or you could be having thunderstorms. So, yeah, in this case though, it did rain in Hungary, and it's, yeah, just test it a little bit, just so at least you know roughly what a wet tyre and an inter tyre need to do. It should be pretty simple. Anyway, for FIDOCK and Cooper, let's be honest, they've both finished and scored points, which is something that teams above them can't say, all of them. So they gained on Hawkeye, they even gained on Epic, these sort of guys, but which is a good, to be honest, that's a good result for the team this year, to actually get 2 cars in the points. The downside would that be they're both a lap down, so they were never in any real position to score huge points. There was some errors, but there has been errors from everybody on this field so far. So it's just who made the least. To be honest, I didn't really see Cooper's race very much. It didn't seem to be standout performance very much. Just seemed to be solid, which is what we need from Cooper recently, rather than doing a few DNFs here and there. FIDOCK, I believe, could have been even higher. He was in that battle at one stage of that 4th attempt sort of area, but then there was, I believe, an incident. I'm trying to think who it was with now. There's about 3 cars in there, if I remember rightly. I want to say an Adonis. That sort of might have been Kazdorp, maybe. Kazdorp might have been higher up. Anyway, apologies. Watch back the stream. You'll know more than me then. I'm trying to remember everybody. There was a few incidents though, and FIDOCK bringing the car home 9th. Double points finish. It's not too shabby, I suppose, but could have been better at the same time. For what is 2 experienced heads, you know, these are the sort of conditions where these 2 experienced guys can really make hay, because they go, you know what, I know what I'm doing here. I know how to drive these sort of tracks. I know how to drive these mixed conditions. I've been here before, and they are being beaten by a few rookies, so that's a bit of a shame. But you know, cars do play a factor. Adonis jumping the way up the standings now. It wasn't that long ago we were talking about Adonis being right at the back with the Street Fighters and Mad Capes and, you know, Mizuiks, and struggling down there. Now though, they're in the upper echelon, so I know it's very close here between 7th all the way down to like 12th. It's very, very close. Arguably we were worrying for Nordsten maybe getting involved in that as well. They still could do, but if they keep doing what they did this race with double point scoring, they should be absolutely fine. The 4th double points finish for Nordsten this season, Jeffrey. Very good work. They've never managed to make it 2 rounds in a row. Well, there's no pressure for you at Spa, eh, guys? Yeah, it's kind of rich coming from a team that didn't score at all this round, but okay. And FIDOCK tells me that he tried to pass Frantic on the outside, went into the wet patch, but spun and damaged the car later on. Well, that makes sense. Although it's a bit of a surprise that you know, if you've got double world champions that can make mistakes. It happens to everybody. Don't feel bad if you've had a bad race from this one. But yes, not Nordsten. We've just done them. Adonis. Adonis had, well, arguably a mixed race. Let's call it that. So qualifying, Yuri did very well. Actually, he managed to qualify the car. He started 2nd because RISTO had his penalty, but so he qualified right at the front anyway, which is very good going. You know, arguably beating some other guys. I know it was mixed conditions. It's quite difficult to tell where people stand on that, but you've got to be in the right place at the right time, which he obviously was. So well done to Yuri there. F1 though did have the penalty for the back of the grid, so that's why he started 24th. pace-wise, both cars were kind of there. F1, it was harder to see. Let's be honest, he wasn't in the race for the whole race. He did move his way forwards. He probably needed to be slightly bolder on some tyre choice calls, maybe. I say bolder, you know. Yuri maybe was arguably slightly too bold, so it was a bit of a. But Yuri had the paces for sure, particularly when it rained at the start. He was very much on pace with the top guys. He was, you know, comfortably up there in second and third, that sort of area. But then did pit very early for different for the which one did he do? Was it Inters or Dries he pitted for first? One of them he pitted for first. I think it was Inters doing that element, and still brought the car home 7th. But I think with Yuri, it would probably be one of those what could have been. I would argue probably Siebel and JARL were probably a match too far, but Yuri probably could have been looking at 3rd or 4th. But for the team, still 7th is very much there. And Yuri is one of those where actually, this is his first year here in Super League. Yes, he's a very experienced guy in endurance, but the first year here, and I'd say he's been doing definite glimmers of. Actually, there's been some races. His results probably don't really show his true potential. I would say this is a guy to watch out for next year. He's got the pace, just a few minor errors taken out of it, a few strategy calls maybe. Dare I ask that the strategy element of the team may be lacking when the team manager is driving a different car on track? Just a small thing. Maybe the team's not quite set up like it used to be in that respect. You haven't got the backup necessarily. It could be untrue, but hopefully, hey, maybe we'll have Menno on the show one time and he can tell me actually how he works the team. But that would be my guess, is that actually somebody on the pit wall for them might help a little bit, particularly someone with Menno's experience. Although arguably he did see an awful lot of them passing him this time round. But I think, you know, in a DNF for F1 was I can't actually remember how he went out now. Which is a shame, but still, for Donis to 7th place is good points actually for that team. It does keep them ticking over nicely, keeps them moving forwards. They're in that battle there for. They will be trying to look for 6th, no doubt. We'll be looking at Nordsen, but at the moment, 7th is was probably their initial target. You know, 7-8 rounds ago now. Eval, another one who will want to rue this race. After some very good results, particularly with Kilk, this race was not one for them. Both drivers had penalties, so they started at the back. So that's 23rd and 25th, and let's put both DNF'd. There was an awful lot of battles, lots of spins, lots of going off, lots of. It's just, I mean, I couldn't even see half of the stuff going on with these two cars. This will definitely be one they will want to forget. 0 points. The only benefit, I suppose, is that quite a lot of guys around them didn't maximise what could have been. So, and equally didn't have, you know, they're sort of running off the back of having. It's still a new team. This is a team that they're mid-pack at the moment, so they're sitting 8th in the championship. They've got an R&D ranking of 11th, so they've got a very poor car in that respect, and so we're outperforming it. So I suppose, you know, if you've got a car that's ranked 11th, you shouldn't really be coming any higher up than 20 odd. Arguably some people fall off the track, you could do, but yeah, I'd say that's it's a huge shame for them really. Eval, I would, yeah, I'd say forget that one and come back. Actually, it's something that as a new team you can't, and the way the upgrades work is that actually they are off kilter with everyone anyway, so they should be looking at next time as their track to go after. There's sort of every other one you see an Eval doing very well and the next one potentially very poor. Less said about them and better, I think. Quite uneventful racing. Red Archer. I think the story here for Red Archer was even before the race started, in that they didn't really have many drivers. It was very much who's in this car. Unfortunately, Pedro Gomez not racing, so we got Sousa Ferreira, who was sort of confirmed slightly earlier, as far as I remember, as a reserve jumping in, and then Fran Lopez as an emergency. Yep. Fran Lopez has lots of experience. He's driven this season already, which is a big question mark in itself. I don't know how legal it is for him to actually have driven this race, but he did. It would be something that I imagine will be in the hands of the DC, I hope. If anyone's watching, that'd be great to tell me if it's legal or not to have driven in one team and then another. In my eyes it isn't, unless you've got admin approval. As late as this drive was decided, I imagine it probably didn't get admin approval. But then he was contracted as emergency, so I know you can have run an emergency contract and then gone on to a primary for a different team. That's allowed. Can you do it the other way around? Don't know. I suppose for the DC to decide. Anyway, when they did race, FRAN actually did much better than I thought he'd do. Now, that being said, he could have done an awful lot better. He qualified 9th, which again in the wet conditions, and Bruno in 18th. Again, Bruno will argue he's probably not the fastest guy out there. This is a very high level league at the moment. 18th, he's still out-qualified some guys that you know, you may have expected to have beaten him. So that's not too bad in a car you're probably not that familiar with, and on track conditions that you probably weren't expecting. So that's solid enough, even though the car is very good. I'm told by Dennis Jordan it was legal. They asked the admins. That's fair enough, as long as they did. But yeah. And Bruno said his car shifted into first while he was shifting up, and the engine went, but had no pace in the wet. That's the story of his race. Fair enough. The race wasn't very long for him either. He didn't really have long to try out if he was any better in the dry, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll get to see him in the car again at some point. I'd be amazed if it was approved by admins ahead of time, in that admins are still waiting to look at some appeals from 4 or 5 rounds ago. If that's, you're talking about 3 months. So I'd be amazed if they managed to look at something so recent so soon. But hey, yeah, it's normally exceptional circumstances as well. So previously I've only seen it given for Olsen, who was sort of dumped because he's dumped by the team, and then 3 or 4 rounds, and then brought back by Storm at the time. Whereas I think FRAN left Adonis of his own accord and has now chosen another team. Hey, not my position, but if I was admin, I'd have said no. But there you go. Good thing I'm not, hey? So anyway, FRAN did rather well, I suppose. He could have done an awful lot better. He went onto the dry tyres way too early. He spun an awful lot. He did a lot of pirouettes. He was a nice little guinea pig for everyone to see, because he did have pace over 1 lap, and then spun and crashed, and then had pace over 1 lap, and spun and crashed. He's one of these guys that did stick to, I know the dry tyres are better, I like them, I love going fast, and I don't mind excursions off the track. So, but he still managed to bring it home 14th. Granted a lap down, granted the car is good enough to be up there in the top 5, if not higher, in the right hands. So, arguably not a great event for Red Archer, but could have been an awful lot worse, because they didn't have any cars on track at all. So if you're working on that base, they did quite well. If you're working on the base of where the car should be, they did very poorly. Depends how you want to look at it. Glass half full, glass half empty? Not sure which side you fall on. But they're suddenly sitting in 9th in the championship, and in that battle now with everybody else, where Adonis are moving away from them. Sorry, just dying here. Normally I've got someone else to talk, but this time let's go to, should we go to flag to flag? I suppose we must. Yeah, flag to flag. I'd argue not their best performance. We had Michael Ayres and Hutchinson in the car again. Ayres was impressing me early on. Yes, he got a little bit lucky with the qualifying, but did very well to get the start off in 4th. Mark Hutchinson sort of around the 12th is sort of where you'd probably expect them to be based on the R&D ranking of 7th. And he's the one been scoring most of the points all year for the team. So Michael Ayres was doing very well. He was in that battle for 4th place for about the first half of the race, realistically. He was right up there. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case to last that way. It's one of those, when you have an accident it happens to the best of us. You get a little bit on the wet stuff, it can happen. You're battling away very closely with everyone, you can touch. These sort of things do happen, and there was a lot of positive signs behind Michael's driving this time out, but at the same time the results still ended up as a DNF, and his DNF rate this year is appalling. It's a shame, really. Mark Hutchinson, on the other hand, still carried on his point scoring record, did come 15th, granted 2 laps down, and when you end up a lap behind a spinning Fran Lopez who's been doing dry tyres, you know you've not had a good race. But I suppose he still finished the race, which ultimately in these sort of conditions is #1 thing you need to do. get that car to the end in whatever state, how many wheels it's got on its wagon, get it to the end, and you're quite likely to score points in that people do fall off quite regularly. So although we didn't quite get to the stage of only having 15 runners, we weren't that far off. Once we get those from flag to flag, I'd imagine, and to be honest, it was kind of forgettable for me for them to watch them as well, apart from Michael early on in the race, who was battling up there, and it was nice to see him up there. I do hope he comes back and shows that pace, not just that he's like some sort of loves the wet maybe. But it is a very close battle now, and unfortunately for them, they are finding themselves at the starting to get to that tail end of that battle. You know, you've now got Adonis scoring quite decent points. Norton is still scoring points there. Eval have very good races occasionally and score an awful lot of points, so can afford to have a poor round. The only benefit, I suppose, to flag is that this next team, Storm, are doing very poorly. So this was, yeah, Storm Racing. They got an R&D ranking of 12th. Championship, they're 11th at the moment, so they're about where they should be, I suppose, for what they've built. This time they did throw Luke Browning in, young Carter from England. He tried. I mean, I'll give him that. I don't know how much notice he managed to get. Michael Ayres, the race was suspended after qualifying. I finished 4th, nothing happened after that. Happened to most of your races, didn't it, this year? Finished after qualifying. When you hit a barrier, you do seem to forget, you know, what happened in the previous half an hour. So yes, Storm though, Luke Browning qualified 20th in the wet. Not really the best way of doing things. To throw him in there, I suppose. First Super League race in the wet in a car that's not fantastic. Well, he made 5 laps, and yeah. Unfortunately, DNF ended up with back wing missing and things. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. And then Mano Klomp was in the other car, who was, how to put this nicely? No, I can't. It was horrendous. I'm sorry, Mano. Started at the back. You had your penalty as well. And yeah, you deserve to be there. You finished, I suppose, so you got 17th, but 6 laps down. 6. I'm surprised there wasn't more. You were on the grass more than you were on the track. You were in everyone's way when they were lapping you. You had wings missing. There's a point, I know I said you need to get to the end, but there was a point when you go, I'm now a danger to myself and others, when your car is struggling to drive in a straight line. You got no hope of points. You know, arguably I did part of that car. You know, I don't like saying that, and that's the first time I think I've probably ever said it, but when you become a danger to others, particularly in wet weather conditions, yeah, park it. Storm though, absolute free fall at the moment. They really need to be getting some points now on the board. They did very well at the start of the season, but really starting to struggle now, unfortunately. I think it's the drivers now. We're really at that point. Sorry to say it, but you know, Liam was obviously overdriving the car, or obviously at the start of the season there wasn't as much difference in the car, but so they've been building it wrong a little bit. Yeah, that's the other thing. David Mano did stick to the inter tyres for absolutely ages, when everybody else on track has decided to take a dry compound, whichever one that may be. There was a mixture between ultra softs and mediums on track at the same time. He kept on going on inters. Whether that's, there's 2 parts to that. If you're already 4 or 5 laps down last, do you stick to inters in the hope it rains? Maybe. Do you stick to inters because you've been spinning off like mad on inters and you don't risk dries? That's another option. Or are you just being an idiot and burning up your inter tyres, and that's potentially why you're spinning as well? But this isn't the first time we've seen this from Mano this year, unfortunately. Very nice guy, good manager. I think Super League is now too high a level for Mr. Klont. Find Super Club for next year, Mano. Thank you. Or just don't take my advice at all. But there you go. Storm, you can do better. Zurich, one of these teams that is underperforming the car. The car is very good. The car is ranked 5th, but in the championship they're 12th. So they know how to build a car. They just don't seem to be knowing how to drive this car that well. That said, both cars finished. Yes, laps down, maybe. Qualifying, Whoopke had his penalty, but so started near the back at 26th. DINO qualified 13th, which actually for them was okay this year, I suppose. And he finished 13th, so I suppose fine. If you're not used to the wet, only 1 lap down. He was there or thereabouts, so potentially, you know, could be in the top 10, just about. It was sort of close, I suppose, and Whoopke was close to scoring a point as well. If they got a double points finish out of it, I suppose they'd be sat here going they did alright. And when you look at some of the other teams we've just been looking at, with Storm doing nothing, Flag to Flag doing rather poor as well, technically they gained on them, so as a pose, it's a reasonable one from Zurich. But when we come on to the teams behind them, who have done better than them this time out, I suppose, then maybe it's not enough now. If before, Zurich will have just been looking forwards, they've got to look a little bit behind them as well now, potentially. Maybe not after one race, but, you know, I still would have a look at it. Yeah, I just don't think these guys have got the handle of this car yet, particularly in the rain, but they just don't seem to have worked out how these are very, very capable drivers. They've shown that last year as well. They've shown they work very well together. Yeah, just doesn't seem to have quite gelled either with this car or the way they developed the car, or they've just not hit that setup sweet spot yet. There are a lot of teams have struggled to get to, but do eventually get there. These guys still aren't there. New team, of course, remember. So I suppose you can't have too much to go at them, but when they're the worst of the new teams now, that says a lot as well. Sorry, it's been a long day. Right, normally here I'd come on to Street Fighter, but I can't because they're not here now. It's now Mad Cape. Based on the result this time out, they actually now jumped them in the standings, which is pretty incredible to say. I've got very little to say negatively to Mad Cape this time out. Just very well done. They've started building the car quite well. We've seen a few Scrutineer shows now that they have started developing the right areas. Although the car itself is still R&D ranking of 13th, that's mostly down to some odd choices towards the start of the year with dirty air and things like that. But actually, and we said in the Scrutineer that they put Daniel Brewer in the car, granted only for 4 races, but he's got the talent. He always had the talent. We've seen him in the lower series as well with the talent. We've seen him in Kerno in the Super League in previous years. So he's no slouch at this level. He can do it, and he showed on Thursday that he can do this. He qualified 7th in the car that isn't particularly great, but you could say, well, that was down to the weather and when he got on the grid and all that sort of stuff. But in the race, they did the right strategy calls. They played it vaguely safe, but still, you know, the right calls at the right time. And they brought the car home 5th. Passed an ACR on the way to do it. I mean, not many have done that necessarily this year. So incredible work from a Mad Cape. That Brewer was fantastic. I couldn't applaud that more. To come 5th when in a race when both ACRs and both Edge cars finished, even though they didn't finish in the first 4, but arguably when that happens, 5th is probably the best you're going to expect. Throw in people like Dennis Jordan and stuff as well, and you suddenly go, well, actually, I've done rather well here. And actually, like this race, they scored many more points than they scored all year so far. So it's a race result they definitely needed, and a way to kick off the second half of the season with Mad Cape. Incredible. Even Tobias Olsen managed to bring back some points as well. He qualified 15th, which is fine. You'd sort of expect him around there. That's not too bad, particularly with the rain. And he came around 12th. Pretty damn good going. We've seen Olsen can consistently score points. We've seen in the past that he can do. He just needs to do it regularly. That's always been Olsen's problem. I'm hoping, because before he had, let's be honest, arguably a very poor teammate. So it probably wasn't particularly inspiring. Probably had poor confidence. Probably wasn't really making him want to race necessarily. I could be putting, you know, that's just the way it came across. You know, they were retiring the car early to save engines. All this sort of stuff has happened in the past with Mad Cape. But maybe if they got Brewer in the car, who arguably actually has the outright pace, he might be able to advise Olsen, might be able to pull Olsen up a bit, maybe inspire him a bit over these 4 races and really make a drive for the end of the year. 2 points finishes, which most teams can't say they did this time out, in these kind of conditions. And this kind of conditions is exactly where you want this team to, like, if you're a car at the back of the grid and you want to maximise races like this where it's poor weather, these are the guys that want to maximise that, and they did that this time out. You know, they could have even been better. Olsen arguably was even higher up at one stage. He was in that battle as well, on the back of the top 10, so he could have been right out there, sort of FIDOCK area. Even was battling away RISTO and things like that. So there was that sort of element is where he was battling. There was an issue which meant he dropped back, but still he did most of the second half of the race with a crabbing car. I don't know if you even saw it from on board. It was on the broadcast as well, and still managed to carry on. Didn't pit it, kept it going, and managed to do the race with quite a few laps, I believe, if I remember rightly. So yeah, coming home only 1 lap down, 12 as well. Very well done, Tobias and Daniel, incredible, and the whole Madcate team. Let's hope that's not the last time I get to say that. Let's make that more regular thing. Let's try and keep the points coming and see if you, because it's not huge gaps. It was looking huge before this race, but it's not so huge now. They jumped up to 19 points now, which is pretty damn good going. Somebody else who's now also on 19 points and last is now Red Bull Street Fighter. Oh, do I go into this? I was saying that right, okay, so they've got 90 rank and 14th, so they've got the worst car on the grid, and they're currently 14th in the standings. So on that basis, they've not given the drivers the car to do anything really in this to score points. This time out though, in the wet, Ben Hall did the Ben Hall thing. He even had a 5-place grid penalty. That's easy for me to say at this time of night. So started 19th. Dave Franchik jumped in for Florian Gaia, and I wish his family well. Unfortunately, he couldn't race this time out. But Franchik grabbed that opportunity. He has been in the team and around the team testing and helping, and he is part of the management team there, so it's not like he's unfamiliar with the car. So he's probably a great choice to jump in that car, and did fantastically well. He qualified 5th, which again you could argue with the weather and stuff like that is, you know, a bit of luck maybe, a bit of where you were on the track at the right time, but you still got to be on the right track, be on the track at the right time, and keep it on the black stuff, and then come home 10th. Let me just double check that actually, because I thought he'd finished a little bit higher than that, but that might just be me. Either way, he was battling right. He was right out there throughout the whole race. The guy kept his in the wet. He managed to keep the pace towards the front. He was right out there battling away. Yes, it was 10th. Ah, yes, FIDOCK got him. Yes, sorry. So yes, it was 10th. Let me just go back to that. Apologies, nice and professional. Arguably, Franchik probably could have even had a couple more places. Did get into a few little squabbles and stuff, but basically kept himself quite clean and tidy. It went onto the soft tyres towards the end, so did quite a longer run. So was strategy-wise was reasonable as well. I don't really have much negative to say about Franchik. It was a good stand-in performance. I kind of hope he gets more drives. Hopefully not in the circumstances around Florian. It'd be nice to see Florian and Franchik together, because I was saying that Menno needs to drop to Super Cup and go. Well, the whole, you need to follow him, get the same bus. Yeah, another DNF. You know, that's a lot this year. That's arguably more than most Super League. You've probably had more DNFs this year than most Super League drivers will have over the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, you know, David FIDOCK, you're in the chat here. Been racing in the league for too many to mention now. I want to say, you've done 5 years in Super League now, something like that. Maybe more now, 6. And I think DNF'd once. Well, you know, that's an incredible record, but at the same time it just shows the level that Super League drivers are at, and Ben Horrill, you are not at that level. I think you've been, you know, found wanting, and you know that because you've set yourself to retire from Super League at the end of the year. Fine. I would now, Franchik has there and shown that he still obviously has the drive and motivation skill to do it. If you can get him in that car for the rest of the season, get him in that car, because you're now up against a Madcate with people like Brewer in it, and at the moment, based on this, you're going to struggle. So yeah, now last in the standings, there's nowhere else you can go from this point. You need to be, you know, you need to be doing better. You've started developing the right areas now, you know, but you're still a long way off. Let's not go into it too much. Let's have a look at the next Scrutineer show maybe. But yeah, to actually now be bottom of the standings is not good, unfortunately. This is where I normally talk through with my guest about my predictions from the Scrutineer of who I think would do well and who wouldn't. SL since 2014. Yeah, so, wow, okay. So, yeah, just shows there, basically, doesn't it? So, my predictions that I did on the Scrutineer last Monday. So, we predicted that Edge would be set to success. It was quite a safe bet, let's be honest. And I think they did rather well. They scored double point finishes right near the top. They arguably could have won the race. I know some people say, well, maybe they should have done, but like, still set for success. I'm giving myself that. That was a good choice. I hope you all agree in the chat. If you disagree, let me know. This one could be a little bit controversial, I suppose. Reasons to worry. Nottingham scored, and scored okay, I suppose. I'd still argue there was reason to worry. They were never troubling the guys at the top. The car's not up to that. But yeah, who's that? That's JARL giving us Ben Hull's stats. Thank you very much. 62 starts with 28 DNFs and 2 DQs. What a record. You'd have to make 30 odd wins out of the others, I think, to make it viable, but nonetheless, it's nice that everyone's I don't want to be too harsh in that everyone is trying their best and everyone has a place to be within GPVWC. That's why we have the ladder system, that's why there are other areas, and in previous years Super League may well have been the place for them, but now the level has just risen that much more that actually if you were good enough for Super League 2 or 3 years ago, you might not be good enough now. And I think that might be the case in people like Clons and HORRILL, that sort of element now. This level is lower. Level is at a different series now, I'm afraid. Nottingham Racing though, it's a bit mixed. They did alright. Like, I expected them to struggle a lot more, and if you'd had certain drivers, you could have had both of the epic cars in there, for example, doing well. But I suppose, give them credit. They scored it well enough. I'll hold my hands up. I expect them to do a lot worse than that. I was expecting them to come on here and they might have scored the odd point here or there. Arguably didn't score many more than that, but still a reasonable team result considering where they have been previously. Yeah. So my team of the day will probably come as no surprise as Madcape. I never actually thought I would say that this year. It seemed it just tastes just wrong. Madcape Racing Team, my team of the race basically. Outperformed that car quite heavily. You can make arguments, of course, for ACR. You can make arguments for Edge, but you could even make the argument of, no, maybe just those two for now. But I'd say Madcape were the ones that are outstanding. Really, they did much better. Double point score from what was, and they've taken themselves off the bottom of the standings. For me, that's incredible. As Yao says in the chat, that yeah, everyone's level does improve, particularly when you start bringing money to the table as well. It's just not where you let managers drive anymore. There is an argument to that. If you're managing the team, I mean, there's two. It's quite interesting between Clot and HORRILL managing one team and driving for that team. Menno knowing he's not up to the standard, so not even driving for his own team and actually going to somebody else and driving for them. If you're not good enough for your own team, what are you doing driving in another car? But yeah. And then my driver of the day, I'm going to give to Daniel Brewer. It has to be, doesn't it? I mean, you can argue for Siegel, you can argue for JARL, but I think we're not going to have many chances to do this necessarily. I think Daniel might have over the next few rounds, maybe, but that was an incredible performance. To be right up that high, you do need a little bit of luck, but you do need that pace. And he just had that raw pace in what is a car that should not be up that high completely. Did very, very well, as I've run before. But they are my driver of the day. Well done, Daniel. I know it doesn't necessarily mean too much to you, but hey, good work from just incredible work from Madcape and Daniel and Tobias and Xavier is there as well. He was doing the pit wall maybe, as a manager should be, rather than driving for a different team. Something else that we'll go to quickly before we finish this, because that is everybody this time out. I know we've got a whole lot of the season still to go. We're only just done round 11, so we've still got quite a way to go all the way through till November, including November. But they have just announced GPVWC Day. So that is at it's Silverstone this time out. So in the UK, so I expect an awful lot of you to be there. We'll be there for simnews.tv. I'll also be there for ACR, of course, but we'll be there. At Milton Keynes / Silverstone, depending on what's going on. Hopefully there's loads going on. If you want to come on down, it's a free event to be at. You can watch the awards. There's always a quiz. I mean, it's all under wraps exactly what's going to happen, but based on previous years, just get to other sim races. It's of course at the home of British motorsport. So make sure there is an event on the GPVWC Facebook page. You can also find it on the Discord and on the forum from gpvwc.com. It's the 1st and 2nd of December. So get yourselves down to Silverstone, fly yourselves in, get the train, bus, hitchhike, whatever you need to do to get yourself there. You've got plenty of time to plan something. The community will help you, no doubt, if you can't get there necessarily yourself. They also do karting normally. This time I think it's going to be in Milton Keynes, probably at the Daytona, which is an incredible track there. So you can all sign up to do that. I think there may even be a sim race LAN event going on at Simply Race, which would be incredible. Again, you can all find all that on the forum or the Discord, or just ask, somebody will help you. So if you're in and around the community, it's not necessarily just for Super League drivers, it's for all the levels. If you're a manager, if you're a media guy, if you're at Super Cup, if you're at Formula Challenge, they have awards for all these things. If you're an academy driver and you want to get involved, this is where you also see some team announcements for the year after. It's also where you'll see you'll see all the stuff that's going to happen in the league for the year after. They always announce the series that are going to run, all the extra little bits that's going to happen, that sort of thing. So it's always worth going. It's great to catch up with the guys. If nothing else, it's going to be great to go and see Silverstone. If you've never been before and never had the opportunity to go and pay during a race, let's get on down. Let's go and see Silverstone. Let's have a gander. If you've not, it's a good excuse to come over to the UK if you've not had a chance to do that. There's loads of places to be. If it's Milton Keynes, it's my hometown as well. So don't hold that against them. It's nice. I did leave, but it's nice. And Will leaves and lives down that way, which might be why we're doing it there. But great. I hope to see you all there. It'd be great to catch up and see an awful lot of you. Some of you I will have met before in previous years, but there's going to be so many more of you now that I hope you will all join us down there as well. Honestly, it's one of those things. It doesn't have to be expensive to do either. If you haven't gone before and you think, you know what, I quite like sim racing. I'm not that big into the community. I don't know many people. Don't worry about it. Everyone's really accommodating. Loads of people in the same boat. There's loads of things people do. People can share hotel rooms, people give lifts, if you get yourself anywhere near that place, get yourself to Milton Keynes Station, get yourself into London even, I'm sure people will get you out of there. It's easy enough to do. It doesn't need to be expensive. You don't have to do the karting, you don't have to do the simulator stuff, which may cost extra, or will cost extra. You don't have to do those sort of elements. Just get on down, get involved with everyone. You just need a little bit for cheap accommodation and a few drinks probably, or some food depending on your age. But yeah, do come on down, say hello. We'll be filming a few bits for simnews.tv, I hope, anyway. Hopefully get a few interviews done at least. If not, maybe one of these live, who knows. But I'm sure we can get some bits and pieces done. It'd be great to see everybody down there. Sounds like Jack Mayer's going, so that's great. David Carter, I hope you do come. Who else is coming? Yeah, hopefully you're all coming down. There's already some people signing up, but it's only been live for about a day, so there's plenty of people signing up. You've got loads of time, there's no deadline particularly, but get your name down, get your flights in early, get your trains booked early, get all that sort of stuff done, because it is easier, isn't it, if you know what's already booked and done. It seems so way off now to be thinking of Christmas, but it'd be worth it, honestly. There might be 30, 40 guys down there, that not just guys, maybe girls too, but in the main guys. Sim racing enthusiasts and esport people. Esport personnel now, we might call ourselves proper esport gamers maybe. It would be great to have those people down there. Of course, if you've got a bit of extra money and you want to give a few people drinks, always happy to have an extra drink. Towards the end of this year on this, I'm sure I'll make a few bets with the guys in the chat here about maybe some racing and stuff like that, so I normally end up owing a few people some drinks for GPVWC Day. You do have to be there to claim them though, on this voucher malarkey. Come down and have a drink with me and tell me why you won. I'm sure there'll be plenty of that. But that's GPVWC Day, 1st and 2nd of December. Just make sure you're following the event on Facebook or follow the Discord or forum to know exactly what's happening, when, where, and get your name down, basically. If you're any doubt, give us a message. I hope everyone will come and join us. yeah, that's basically it for this time out. So that was the Hungarian Grand Prix at the Hungarian Grand Prix for WTF1 Superleague for GPVWC.com on Rfactor 2. That was an awful lot, wasn't it, to come out? They are racing again a week next on Thursday again. So we've got the Scrutineer. I'll be back on next Monday. So we will then be discussing all the upgrades and engine choices and all that sort of stuff. Same time again, Monday on this channel at 10 o'clock, British summer time. And then the race is the following Thursday. We've also got Formula Challenge and Super Cup on the Tuesday and Wednesday before that. You can find all this on our, on the GPVWC.com page. You can also find it on simnews.tv, Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, all that sort of malarkey. We're all on there. Just find it all. It's all in the description of this video, including the Discord and everything. So make sure you all join up. And that's about it for Hungary, isn't it? Bye bye, Hungary. Let's move on to Spa-Francorchamps. Plenty of stuff going on there. It's an incredible track. We've then got Monza as well after that. So many great tracks still to come up in the second half of the year. Will Siebel keep winning? Can JARL beat him again? Will the Epic guys bounce back? Can Mad Cape now keep going, or is that just a flash in a pan for them? Are they a wet weather racing team? Can Street Fighter get themselves off the bottom? Can Nordstrom find that form? You know, there's so many things going on in the middle of the pack as well. There's battles up and down the grid. Make sure you watch about the last race. It was incredible if you've missed it. And I shall hopefully see you all next Monday. Thank you very much for joining me, everybody, and yeah, speak to you all soon. Bye for now.